So I wasn't looking for a Lumix G1. I wasn't looking for a G1. I was actually looking for a G2. And that was based on some reviews and write-ups and that type of thing. I'd had a G1 before, and I thought actually the G2 is a better camera, so I should probably buy a G2. However, this, which was listed as an extremely sticky G1, came up for sale. I made an offer of £30 on it, and my offer was accepted. So I then became the owner of a very, very sticky G1. Now, as I say, I had one of these kind of back in the day, and that was actually in 2013. I had one of these, and at the time I'd moved from a Nikon D300 to a G1, and it was a revelation, genuine revelation. The size and weight of this compared to the real handful of the Nikon D300, which in the scheme of things probably isn't a massive DSLR, but still for me pretty big, pretty heavy, big glass, all that type of thing. So moving to one of these was, as I say, a revelation. Look, I keep pretty careful notes about the cameras I own and all that sort of stuff, and the lenses and the usage of them. And if anyone had asked me, I would have said I had a G1 for quite a long time. But looking at my notes, I only had it from July 2013 to May 2014, so less than a year. I was surprised about that. However, looking back at some of the images that I took, I was pleasantly surprised. I think they're better than I might have expected, and equally, if I were to compare them to images I've taken far more recently, they actually compare quite well. And that kind of makes you wonder. That's 12 years ago, and thousands of hours of practice and experience and thousands of pounds worth in equipment. Is anything I'm doing now that much better? Well, there are some instances where, you know, the more expensive, newer kit has made a big difference, particularly motorsport and wildlife. But in the general, everyday photography type stuff, and kind of trips away, holidays, that sort of thing, the difference is not that great, I don't think. At the time, in 2013, I only had two lenses for the G1, and they were the 14 to 45 kit zoom, which I still have and still use and still believe is quite a good lens, or reasonable anyway. And I had the 45 to 200, which I didn't keep, didn't really think it was a great lens, to be honest, but it was pretty cheap and it probably did a reasonable job for the price, looking at the value of it. So when you get a really sticky G1, and is it only the G1 that suffers from this? I don't know. I mean, obviously the one I had back in the day wasn't sticky. This one was super sticky, and now it's a lot less sticky, and it's actually come up quite nicely. But that's only because I spent a lot of time with a stock on my hand and doing this all over the sticky areas, or most of the sticky areas. Haven't covered them all. This part on the top here I didn't do. Some of the bits around the top plates, around here and here, I didn't do. So they may go sticky, but they're not sticky at the moment. And whilst online you can look up what people use to remove sticky, I started with what's called kind of rubbing alcohol, or surgical spirit, which is kind of 70% alcohol. I tried that, and I tried nail varnish remover, acetone, the original, more original stuff, rather than the newer stuff which doesn't have acetone in it quite so much, I don't think. But what I found was that when I was doing this with the sock on my hand, it was kind of smearing it. It would loosen the sticky and smear it about, but it wasn't actually dissolving it at all or bringing it off of the camera. So what I then moved on to is this stuff called sticky stuff remover, but I think it's called Dissolve It. And you can buy it in places like Screwfix and B&Q and that sort of stuff, those sort of places. And that worked really well and has left it quite shiny, and I've given it a bit of a polish just to take some residues and things off, and it's come up really nice. I'm really pleased with it now, and it's a joy to hold and a joy to use. Now it's not sticky. Back to the images, two things are immediately apparent. One is I see things slightly differently now, and images that I processed and used in photo books at the time aren't necessarily the same images that I would use today. And that's just, I think that's just a change in the way I see things, which is quite interesting. And it's, again, I think, as I mentioned in a recent video, it's one of those interesting things where you need to review and look back at work you've done previously and see where you've gone right, where you've gone wrong, what you'd do differently, and that's all part of the learning experience over time of photography. Hopefully some of these images from ages ago, you'll think like I do, they're actually quite reasonable, and I've certainly enjoyed looking at them and reprocessing some of the images. What about the G1, and why did I rebuy it? One of the reasons I rebought it was because of this comparison that I'm kind of mentally undertaking in terms of what I did all those years ago and what I'm doing now, and does this older equipment actually still facilitate good images today? And you know, I'm more and more coming to the conclusion that it does. And some of the older cameras are becoming quite expensive, but these things, these older, original kind of DSLR shaped cameras, they seem to have been a bit forgotten. And I think that's quite a shame, because if you were to try and look for, I don't know, a is it GM1 or a GF1, and they're a lot more expensive than these things, and I don't think that's, it just seems a little bit of a shame. So I think these are undervalued at the moment, and this one, which I picked up, I mean, I think other than the sticky, it's in really good condition, and I'm really pleased with it. And it's got like 3,500 shots on the shutter. The G1 particularly is interesting because obviously it was Panasonic's first attempt at this style of camera, in interchangeable lens, micro four thirds, and it doesn't do video, so it's a bit more restricted. But there are some really good, I think, some really good features to this camera. As you can see, I'm holding it all the time, so I'm one-handed most of the time. And it's got a good grip, feels really good in the hand. It's not particularly heavy. It does feel a bit plasticky in terms of construction, but all of these early Panasonic Lumix cameras feel like that, I think. Obviously, G1's not the only one I've had. After I'd had the G1, I went on to the G3, I had a GH2, a G6, a G2, GH1, all of those a bit on the plasticky side, which is in contrast to the equivalent kind of Olympus cameras. But I don't have the same love for the early Olympus cameras. One of the things I do like about these is They have a lot of physical dials. I like the fact that the drive mode is on a switch just on the top here. You've got the drive mode, so you can easily put it into self-timer, which is something I often use if I'm doing night photography. You've got a little button for the quick menu. You've got the control for the focus mode over here, so it's a very easy camera to get in and out of manual focus, which I like because I do like to manual focus occasionally. And some of these earlier cameras, the autofocus can be a little bit kind of sketchy, particularly when you're at closer range, I've found. So being able to switch into manual focus is good, and the manual focus assist on this is pretty good as well, magnifying the image nicely, and you can work with it quite well. Another of the kind of the downsides, particularly with I think older cameras generally, but these ones seem a little bit worse than others in my experience, is the auto white balance isn't that reliable. So you do need to shoot in RAW, I think, at least. I mean, RAW and JPEG's fine, but you do need the RAW because the white balance, I think, can be a bit all over the shop. The LCD, the electronic viewfinder, and the LCD on the back of this are probably better than I was expecting. I was quite pleasantly surprised. It's not bad. It's not up to modern standards, I don't think. You know, screens and viewfinders have improved immensely. That's one of the areas where these things have improved immensely. But this is very usable and better than I expected. What's equally interesting is that when you're, for example, looking at the, I should probably flip it out. When you're looking at the screen on the back for composing images and the like, and looking at the scene, I didn't think it's kind of okay. It's not too bad. When you're reviewing images that you've taken, it's really, really good. So there's some kind of differences there in how the LCD is actually working, but it's interesting, and I'm really enjoying the kind of the liberating feel of not having great expectations about the images that this will produce. It's quite fun to use. I'm quite enjoying it. We'll come back to some more images from it probably in a while.